at least get us up and running where we need to be for now. And then we'll be able to reevaluate as we move forward,
Right.
with the department, and where maybe we can actually see a little bit of additional savings. So that's one of the things that we can take a look at as we move forward for our next budget.
So we're just adding
So, right, so,
subcode.
yes, and so what happened here is because actually what I did notice going at the salary ordinance, somehow or another, because this is, quite honestly, didn't quite understand what some of these things were. You're gonna see building subcode, that really should be just building, and then we need to put another line, which would be the subcode. And then that subcode would be this, we put the 7,000 in there, so it's separated. So if in fact we need to make any changes in the future, you'll have it full breakdown.
But when you're saying that it's a $5,000,
Seven,
$5,000 decrease,
correct.
what money, where is the money coming from out of
Exactly
those?
was coming out of, Mr. Melfi's, where the money was coming from.
So the one position is feeding
Yeah.
two.
Yes. With the savings.
Are there any other questions? Okay. I know you and Mr. Warren have worked on this over the last week or so, couple weeks. So I think that we can prepare this and get this ready for next week as an intro.
Good.
If there's no other questions. So.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, let's move forward with it.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, next up.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Right, and, all right, whatever legal definitions we have to put into place, amending salary ordinances, takes longer time than creating a position actually. So, whatever we have to do to make sure that happens, let's.
We may just have to change a bunch of years ago, we changed the structure of the building department. We may have to realign that a little bit, but
We'll take a look at it.
yeah.
Right, but we probably need to get that salary ordinance thing done
Otherwise, we can't get
next
the
time
ordinance out
because
there.
it won't pass this
Right.
this
We have
session.
to introduce and adopt before the end of the year, so we have to get it on right away.
Yes.
Correct.
So let's make sure we have that ready for next week, for next meeting.
Mhm.
All right, next up, police purchases or participation in come on. Good evening. So we had some questions about participation in that, the grant program. And what exactly do you plan on doing? And is it going to mean that we're increasing our motorcade pool? Whatever you want to call it.
I don't know how much you know about the program now. We refer to it, you'll hear it referred to as 1033 program. That's what it's loosely referred to as. It's the military surplus equipment program. We get equipment from the military that they're not using anymore. There's a vast amount of equipment that we can get. What we have focused on for the past 5 years, and I'll touch on it in a minute, has been for flood response. That's what we really look at it for. So we've been in the program since 2014. We acquired our first equipment in February of 2015. Both pieces that we got, the cargo truck and the utility truck that we got in February 2015, is the only equipment we've acquired so far. Recently, our Attorney General this year made a requirement that we get a new resolution every single year for participation in the program, which is why we're doing that resolution now. The resolution then has to indicate what equipment you all are authorizing us to get from the program, and it has to be indicated in there, both controlled property and uncontrolled property. Understand that controlled property is your Humvees, utility trucks, cargo trucks, anything that's a truck, a wheeled vehicle, a tractor vehicle is going to be controlled property, as well as weapons, which that's a whole other aspect of the program that we've already been focused on. We're really looking at this for flood response, if we want to have that equipment. Yeah. I mean, so say like a city like Newark, they got their helicopter. So you can get some equipment that's useful. We're using it for what we need it for, and that's gonna be flood response right now. That's what our focus on the program is. Uncontrolled property is everything else. And when I say everything else, I mean from filing cabinets to desks to chairs to, we were at one point looking for a tent for EMS, possibly doing like a tent for medical tanks. They have an unbelievable amount of equipment on there. You scroll through, you get it, and it's at no cost. That's the one thing I have to touch on there. There is no cost associated with it. The only cost would be shipping. If we were to get something that's on the other side of the country and we didn't feel like driving out to get it, we have to pay for the shipping. But we do not pay for any of this equipment. So, come back to why we're here. We had to do this resolution every year. We, in the past, would get the resolution that says, yes, we're participating in the program. Now we have to indicate what items we're allowed to get within that resolution. We currently have one cargo truck and one utility truck. I do not have any plans to get anything further. However, because we're doing this once a year, we had in there one additional cargo truck and one utility truck. In the event we saw the need of floods of something coming, and our truck wasn't working, and there was one available to us in New Jersey, we'd be able, under this current resolution, to go and get it. Which is why it said in there, 2 cargo trucks, 2 utility trucks. We already have one. I'd be able to get one more if the need should arise. We don't, at this point, have any intention of going and getting another one, but we wanted to leave that open, is why we had one in.
So.
Yeah.
This is paperwork?
This is paperwork. There is no, this is paperwork. This is required by the Attorney General just this year. Our resolution is going to expire at the end of 2019, and I'll be back here again next year looking for another resolution, basically the same thing. But we're not looking to increase an armada of vehicles or, it's not, this is just paperwork.
There was some discussion about parts and using a new piece of equipment for potential if we needed to pull equipment off of that.
So we could. And that was a thought that if we were to get another, say, utility truck, and we can mix and match and make, with the one we have, the door is not real great, we can get another one and mix and match and make a real great vehicle. And then give back the one that's not real great anymore. We can use the parts off of it, and that's, you're allowed to do that. You can turn the equipment back once you're no longer using it.
Why don't you see if you can get a newer vehicle and get rid of the older vehicle?
Certainly we could, yeah.
So if we pass this, you guys participate and you don't need something, but then you decide you have to notify the township committee, or you just don't pick up a truck?
No, so let's just give the example. We have on there a cargo truck and a utility truck. And we, for whatever reason, you're like, you need a different type of truck that isn't named. I would have to come back to you with a new resolution asking for permission for that specific type of vehicle, that vehicle type. So we now have a 5-ton truck. If I were to get a 2.5-ton truck, that's still a cargo truck. It's not different that much, but it's the type of vehicle in their system.
So in the past, you've come to us with a, let's just say, wish list of items that you wanted. We authorized that resolution. You went and you got the equipment. Right now, we have to list essentially our current equipment plus a category of upgrades if we're thinking about doing it, making sure, and we have to do that whether we're picking up equipment or not, going forward every single year, making sure that this is on the list. And disposal is as quick as we're getting rid of this vehicle, we need to drop it off somewhere. Where do you want us to drop it? Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, we have to file paperwork saying that we no longer have a need for the vehicle, a use for the vehicle, and find a DLA that's going to accept it, an outpost. They used to be down Fort Dix. They're not down there anymore. I think we're going to have to go down to Maryland now, or up into New York State. But yeah, we can return equipment that we no longer see a need for.
And you see where some of the pieces of equipment are currently located. So you might be able to pick it up from New Jersey instead of,
Well, now I can't, like I said, Fort Dix right now, we can't go and pick up from anymore, but they're close enough up in New York State or down in Maryland.
So we're talking about a drive, not a ship.
Not a ship.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, but as far as controlled property, it's only the one utility truck and the cargo truck, which is the only thing we really had any interest in. It's not the MRAPs, the big armored vehicle. or
Why not?
anything like that. We just we don't see the need. It's not in our vision of what the 1033 program is going to be used for here.
All right, any other questions? All right, so
Black and white Hummer product is yours?
That's part of the 1033
That's
program.
from
Yeah.
the last one?
Yeah, that's our utility truck for the 1033 program. So the only thing that's on that, just because we're talking about parts, that's a soft top. It'd be nice to have a hard top if we're dealing with the rain, although it will still work. You've got a soft top as opposed to a hard top. So if we were to find one with a hard top and stamp that, we could make a better one out of the two vehicles. Right. And then turn in what we don't need anymore.
what happens if you customize or paint it or anything like that?
That's
You have
fine.
to
They don't.
you're-
They're not using it anymore for military
Okay.
service, so what they call them D-mill, and there's D-mill categories, and they're no longer gonna be used for military service, and they're just gonna crush them, so they say, hey, why not let municipalities use them if they can see a need, so that's why we did.
All right, if there's no more questions, I think that's enough information for us to go through with authorizing the resolution tonight.
You don't have to, I mean, you can do it.
Well, we,
So you can buy it.
yeah,
Right there, whatever
I
you
mean,
What's
want.
on it for
Push it.
tonight or?
Yeah, we're in the middle of an inventory, there's a huge push, but we're in the middle of an inventory, which I have to do every October, and they really like to button these things up, so we don't have to wait, we certainly wouldn't want to, because I gotta get
so
all the
let's
paperwork.
push it for tonight. I mean, it was on the agenda for last meeting. We had questions about it. Those questions are answered, so.
Okay.
We're gonna push it for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Non-contractual employee hours. Who wants to take care of that? Is that specific?
I drew all over it.
The labor attorney wrote up something that is not clear. It's not definitive, and he states in it that he can do more research. I had to read it twice to try to figure it out.
All right, so do we want to wait on that until he clarifies what we're?
There's no, did you read it, Bob, at all? No,
I did, I read
There's
parts
no
of it.
definitive
Yeah, no,
answer. in it.
right, correct.
Yeah.
Doesn't really list the conclusion.
I understand your point, because some of his conclusion is based not on actual laws, but it's based on cases and so forth.
Right.
So I wasn't aware that you weren't satisfied with the clarity of it, so I can contact him, either ask him to come in and make a presentation, or ask him to clarify it, or any one of you could contact him directly as well.
Well, we have to have a workable, plan here, if that's the case. So,
I mean, his basic conclusion,
He's like, look up the state and federal statutes. Well, that's what we have you for.
I think maybe it might make sense if you want to address this issue before the end of the year, have him come in and tell you.
is that an item that we would discuss in closed session, or is that something?
That should be, I would suggest that be discussed in closed session, because it is, contractual personnel, it has some, components of it that are eligible for closed session discussion. I think you could also, if you have specific questions, you could reach out to him directly and ask him.
How about the next work session? Would we still be able to
Well,
get
if
through or talk?
If you're going to do something before the end of the year, of course, you have to introduce and adopt before the calendar year ends, but that would still, you could still do it, introduce November, adopt in December, you still have time. Just like the other ordinance, we have, even if it's not done in October, you have November, December to do it. You just can't allow it to carry over to the next calendar year.
Okay. All right, so we probably need more clarity on that, and, do we know specifically?
He doesn't even get
He
an
doesn't-
answer in
right,
it.
he
It's
did.
very vague.
So,
Well, the one answer that he provided is that the employees would have to be compensated for the changes. That part of it, how he got to that, I understand your point, because I read it a couple of times myself. And it's not real definitive, but in terms of the rationale behind it, but the conclusion was that it was his opinion that there'd have to be compensation, it can't be changed, which is kind of logic. anyway, but
It's not that you can't change the hours, it's that that to be compensated.
correct, yeah. So I would just suggest if you have questions like this, we have him come in, if he comes in for the November work session, conceivably, if you want to move forward with it, it can still be done by the end of the year.
I mean, there's obviously other townships that have longer work weeks than ours. So how do our salaries like match up against those? And would it really be considered I understand on an individual basis, but is there something that going into the future, if we're, let's just say, changing the personnel that are in that position, is that the time that you can do it without essentially receiving a penalty for expanding the
I
hours?
mean,
to
for
what-
new hires.
For new hires.
Yeah, that you probably could do, 'cause it's not a collective bargaining issue, so it doesn't apply to a group of people, it's individuals. So you could probably do that, just because that would be a condition of employment, a condition of their hiring.
I agree.
The problematic part is people that are, their employment involves X number of hours, and you're changing it to Y number of hours, so.
Right.
But
Well-
new people, I don't see that as being a problem.
And then do we have an issue, legal wise, a legal issue, if we're having certain people work full-time at 35 hours a week or full-time staff working at 30 hours a week? If there's a difference in what the definition between full-time staff on both of those ends.
I don't think so, because they're individual positions, they're not collective bargaining type union positions. So I don't view that as being a problem.
And you're accepting the position.
And you're right, it's a condition, when you're hired, that's the condition under which you accept the position, so, his opinion was focused more on existing employees and their conditions of their employment, the requirements of their employment, and you're changing that. New people, I don't really see that. We can ask him that question I didn't go over with him, but just logic would tell you that that's probably not an issue.
Is that something that we want to continue? I think we probably want to at
That's
least.
an answer.
That's fine.
Right? No, maybe?
You'll need to set some time for him to explain. So
He's
make
not
sure,
doing it in
make
15
sure it's not a long, it's not a 15-minute
It
explanation.
would seem to be
It's gonna be a long one, so
A little
set
bit
some
of-
time.
a little bit optimistic to address a substantive issue like this in one work session, introduce and adopt that quickly before the end of the year. Just historically, we don't.
It's gonna be a long and lengthy explanation.
Yes.
I know,
And he
so,
likes to talk.
I know, that's why it's gonna be long and lengthy, so,
I mean, if it's something that's of interest to the majority of you, then
Yeah.
it would probably make sense to at least get the
I
preliminary.
would say bring them in.
Bring him in, let's set some time aside.
You want to start earlier? 7?
Sure. What time,
I don't know. Hey.
what time do you want to start?
30 minutes?
No, we probably need an hour
Oh, my
on this.
You're talking about November.
Yeah.
Yeah, November.
I mean, what other time do you guys want to start?
It wouldn't be November 6th, would it?
That's the worst session.
Oh, is that because we moved well? Okay, November 6th.
But do you want to start early? That's the question.
I don't, if we want to address this issue, I don't know if we'll be able to get it done, but
I guess you should just get information. That's what you get, that's what you
Yeah,
see.
if you don't do it this year, 4 out of, at least 4, maybe 5 of you will be in it, it'll be the same. So you might as well start getting the information now, so if you can't do it before the end of the year.
Joe, is it safe to say that it's not that the other towns increase their hours, it's that at some point Rochelle Park shortens their hours, the workday hours?
I don't know the history, I don't really know, I don't recall.
Kind of instead of giving raises, they just
I don't
reduce the hours?
I I don't
I've
recall.
I've been here since,
18
I've been here
Yeah.
since 71.
For as long as I've been here, and these have been
It's
the
always
hours,
been
so
that
that,
short.
That's
Yeah.
40 hours.
yeah. I don't think
As long as I've been here.
I don't recall anyone ever saying that it was kind of a give back.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not gonna give you a raise, but we're gonna shorten the hours. I never remember that even coming up.
Yeah.
So it just
These
maybe,
hours have been here, like I said, for as long
yeah,
as long as
it
I've
may
been here.
just be the way it's always been.
I guess you give him a time limit, so go
I'm
ahead,
just
go
saying,
early.
I'm going back to Billboard, you start
6:30.
early at 6:30.
6:30.
Done, thank you. I'll see that you make it.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, billboard zoning. Mr. It's probably you, right?
Yeah, I sent some materials around. I also spoke previously and again tonight with our planner. He's gonna come up with some suggestions as soon as he can. I'm sure by the next meeting, he'll have some suggestions of what we can do along the lines of our prior discussions.
This is the 1,500 feet thing you talked about?
Right.
What can we get this stuff after?
We should be able to get this done before the end of
Yeah,
the year.
yeah, we should be able to introduce this. There's not that much to it. I gave him a memo about our discussions. I gave him the prior work that I had done and prior resolutions that I sent around for everybody to review. So I'm sure he'll have it within the next week or two. And I don't see any reason why we can't introduce that this in November. It's an easier project, so. But I would like his input, and he had some ideas we talked about tonight, so I'm sure he'll have something for us.
Right, and, I mean, this is, the one thing that we need to do is make sure that we put ourselves in a legally defensible position. And I know the state has, certain standards that are, usually, referred to. So if our standards have to be consistent with those in order to make a, legal case to prevent, too many billboards going in a certain location, then I think we need to just adopt that, so it's not, something that we can
He's
challenge.
aware of how long it's been around, so he knows.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? All right, 49 East Passaic Street. Yeah, can you give an update?
Yeah,
on-
just really not much of a change. The auction scheduled for November 14th. The publication will be November 7th and October 31st. I've been in contact with the Realtor. I also we spoke briefly about the possibility of an auction company, just as a thought. I spoke to them, told them we're not interested in it. We're going to just stick with what we have. The rezoning ordinance or change in permitted uses for that property was we prepared an ordinance, submitted it to the planner and the planning board. The planning board apparently adopted a resolution approving it, it's called a consistency review, finding it to be consistent with our master plan and our zoning ordinance. They adopted a resolution to that effect. And we introduced our ordinance at the last meeting, so we can adopt it at this meeting, which we really need to do if you want it to have an effect on the auction, because you won't have another meeting before that. I don't believe anyway.
Oh, we have,
Well,
we are
the
talking
6th.
about tonight.
No, I mean, we
This
would
coming-
adopt it
this coming
tonight.
meeting.
It's coming, yeah,
Yeah, it's
October
coming,
23rd,
yeah.
we should. The
Right,
schedule
there's
that I
no-
mapped out in a couple of months, last month was introduce at the last meeting, discuss tonight, if there's any changes, which hopefully there won't be any, adopt on October 23rd, so we can make it part of the auction package that goes out for the November 14th sale.
Well, we would actually have one meeting before the auction, but it wouldn't be
The problem
in a
is,
packet.
correct, the problem is the advertisement for the auction. The first advertisement is going to be October 31st. So in order for this to be effective, to help solicit interest in the sale, we would really have to adopt this on the 23rd.
Right.
So it goes in as part of the package.
Okay.
planning board did not make any recommendations for changes. John, I believe, did a memo with some explanation of how he came up with some of the bulk requirements. I didn't see it, but he told me that he sent something around. I don't know whether he sent it to you or maybe just the planning board, but I asked him if it constituted any changes to what we introduced, and he said no. It was just a clarification. So I think we really need to adopt, or keep it on for adoption next week, on the 23rd.
Okay, any questions? All right, seeing none. Let's continue on. Redeveloper pay play.
I drafted for you to consider the ordinance, essentially with what Mark had come up with from another municipality. I did point out to you that we have an ordinance about donations or solicitation of donations, not redevelopers in particular, but people with consulting or professional contracts. It wouldn't address this issue, so this would be an addition to what we have on the books right now. Review it. We have time. We have 3 months. We could conceivably introduce it next meeting on the 23rd. We also have a November work session, November meeting to introduce if we want to talk about any changes. The redevelopment agreement, somebody mentioned that the redevelopment agreement may have provided, but it does not. Bars, solicitation, yeah.
All right, any
No, it's-
questions?
It's wordy, it's long, but, take a look at it, it's.
All right, any other discussion?
I have to read through this.
Yeah, I wanna read it.
gonna
Enjoy
take
reading
some
it,
time.
and if you don't, if you need more time, we can introduce it next month, but
Yeah, we don't, honestly, I wouldn't suggest we introduce it on October 23rd. I think we should probably, you should look at it, discuss it in November, plan on introducing it then. Because it does take some time to digest because of its length. I don't jump into it, because then if you make changes, it may derail it, so you can't do it before the end of the year, so. Anybody has any input, just let me know, I'll amend it or incorporate whatever comments you have.
All right,
just track the changes, please.
I'm sorry,
Track the changes,
I will.
so I don't have to look for them.
all right, DPW salary contract.
That's, we were notified by the union, that the contract is expiring at the end of the year. Anyways, so I'm gonna have to come up with a committee. I don't know if you, actually, since the labor attorney is going to be here on the 6th, we want to discuss it. I'm not sure if you want to have the labor attorney involved or not with the contract. That's up to you, as far as how you want to proceed. But if you want to have a committee established.
In the past, just as an aside, I've really done it as it became an issue. Usually they're fairly routine, so you don't have to spend any more, any dollars on getting it done. And, obviously I'll do that if that's your, at least preliminarily, if it's smooth enough, you may not need anything.
In the last 2 contracts, actually, I was able to take care of it.
Right, exactly, so.
But I mean, that's up to the township, how you want to handle it. They're supposed to have a meeting on Friday, that's my understanding, is to meet with the union reps and I guess come up with their requests for demands.
Okay.
So we'll know more.
Do you
I'll be
have
on that.
any other,
I don't, I can't commit, so.
you can always ask Nick if he's interested. If he's not interested, I'll sit on it. We just need 2 members.
I just noted this and whether or not you want me to be involved,
Yeah, you should,
Okay.
you should be involved. All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, let's move into attorney.
Sure. Actually, the items on the list there have already been addressed either in the discussion section or with our planner. I do want to just mention two things that are not listed there. At the last meeting, Mike Kelly brought up an issue of Ken Job continuing to handle the Rochelle Avenue, Railroad Avenue intersection, the engineering work associated with it. Because he had done it up until present time. So there was some issue of whether the actual takings maps had been finally approved by the county or hadn't been. We're trying to work all that out with the county. Ken, in the interim, submitted a resolution and a proposal to continue it. So it was brought up at the last meeting. It's up to you. I thought it was mentioned, and I don't think anybody objected to it. It made sense just because
But we had hired a new engineer. So why are we giving work back to the old engineer who's not under our,
Yeah, I mean, it's completely up to you. Mike, I think
Mike has
Mike was
been
the one
working
that,
on it for 2 years already.
I actually think Mike was the one that brought up
Yes, he did.
letting Ken, he said he
But
thought.
that was when we thought it was happening last year, and we were concerned about.
I'm not
the
advocating
continuity. No,
one
no.
position or another. I mean,
I
it's
get it,
just,
but this is, the railroad project has been moved back again,
Yeah.
obviously. I think when we had hired Boswell, we agreed to have Ken continue just because there was that chance the project's gonna start, but now it's kind of been pushed back again.
that's fine. Then, I mean, if you do that, then all you have to do is tell Mike to
Again,
continue.
I spoke to Mike, excuse me, I spoke to Mike as well, just to reconfirm, that this was basically his recommendation to have Ken Job continue on just that part of it. And part and parcel, the issue here is that, and you were actually at the one meeting where we met with the county.
Right.
And what's happening here is we need to have everything in place so that this way, what I'm afraid of is happening is that the county's gonna be looking for an excuse not to be able to move forward with this plan, because they were gonna go out to bid at the fall, correct? That was
But
what the
I
conversation was.
also feel that if you weren't at that meeting pushing the county engineer,
Mhm.
we wouldn't be where we are now.
Well,
Because
yeah.
you were really pushing it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I was
exactly.
there to witness it.
Right, right.
You were the one who said, because they threatened to hold us up
Yes,
due to federal funding of the signal.
correct.
It's been one thing after another.
Yeah.
Right, so the whole point of the
It's
matter
just-
is that what I'm trying to avoid is them saying, well, you're not prepared, you haven't done the takings yet, or completed the takings, and so therefore we can't move forward.
Who was doing the
So-
takings? Wasn't that under,
Well-
didn't they meet with the owners?
Yeah, the problem though is,
The county
in
has
order to
authorize-
finalize it, the county has to approve the final maps. So we did meet with the property owners. And we have kind of conceptual agreements, but the county never approved the final map. So if there's 1,200 square feet being taken, for example, we don't really know whether it's 1,200 or 1,500 or 1,000 because the county never gave final approval of the maps. So although we met, we couldn't finalize it because we keep going back and forth with the county. They want the county council to review it, they want the state to review it. The state
Right.
doesn't have funding, the federal, it's one thing after another, and it never got approved. They have not approved the final maps.
And the other issue is, since Ken has already worked on this as to where it's at, if Boswell takes over, then they have to do a lot of the work that Ken did, which now increases the cost of doing that project. And again, more of a delay. So
What
if it
avenue?
wasn't for the fact that Boswell made the recommendation to do this, we wouldn't even be talking about it. But that was the recommendation by Mike from Boswell to have Ken do it. And that's
That's the only reason it was brought up.
otherwise we wouldn't be talking about
Because
it,
I see.
Because Mike's been doing it for a while
Correct.
now, but then.
but not on this part.
Right, but we got to the point where the county said, oh, we haven't approved the maps.
Right.
So that's when Mike said, you know what, I think because that was never done and Ken had worked on it up until that point, he recommended that Ken continue it. But But again, it's really up to you. It's not that Mike.
What
Kelly
kind of
can't do
money
it.
are we talking?
I suppose it's 4,900.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're, and I also had Boswell review, the proposal by Ken,
Okay,
okay? Before, before we move forward with it, so.
Okay.
And.
I'm just saying, I know we hired a new engineer and,
Perfectly understood, and that, again, if it wasn't for the fact that they're the ones that made the recommendation, we wouldn't be talking about this at all.
and he reviewed it, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
all right, I'm fine with that.
So, I mean, as long as it does not, I mean, I want this project to
Done.
continue to move. So whatever are greater possibilities of getting this project done, if it means that we're staying with the same engineer during the time frame to get this project done, I am 100% supportive of that. If it means that it's going to move faster in somebody else's care, then we need to make a change. But I don't want to give the county a reason to change
No,
this,
I
or
think
delay
it
this.
probably would help expedite it if Ken did it, just because he's been involved.
Okay.
The cost that he quoted is $4,700.
Right, so if it's the right avenue, and even as the avenue that doesn't incur an additional expense, then let's continue with the path that we're going on.
And this is money that comes out of the township funds. This isn't coming out of the developer's fees.
Correct.
So it's coming out of taxpayer money.
Correct.
I'd rather not pay twice.
All
So
right,
there is a resolution that Ken had prepared authorizing him to do it in accordance with his proposal, which was $4,700. So you can do that next, tonight, or you can do it on the 23rd, so.
Does it need to be done tonight?
No, but, just like anything else, the sooner, the
All right.
sooner the better. But you could
Are we
wait till the 23rd. I
Are we
think that's-
okay with moving that tonight, or do we want
I'd say just move it now so we can
Yeah,
get
this
this
way we
Right.
can
rolling.
authorize them to
Yeah.
get going, because that's gonna hold them back 2 weeks.
to, all right,
Mr. Tullo, if I know Ken Job is doing 120, he's on that site, is that an issue? I know Boswell's working on some stuff with that too.
Yeah, that one, his involvement is, Ken's involvement is basically finished. It was
Okay.
because he was the planning board attorney when the cube was approved.
Right,
The resolution that I did last month was because the subdivision map, the law says the subdivision map has to be signed by the township engineer. Technically, right now, he's not the township engineer, so we had to authorize him just to put his signature on the map. But the work itself is all completed over there.
okay.
Ken's work.
And the same thing would happen with this.
And then the
His
other-
only involvement is that.
The other parts that go up for 120 will be under Boswell.
That's all possible.
right, but that's also not, that's partially, the planning board's prerogative.
Well, yeah, but,
Because
yeah, I
that's,
mean, the planning board
his
could
involvement,
appoint-
his involvement is not because of the township. His
No.
involvement is because
But
he was
but he's no
planning
longer
board.
the planning board.
Right, but
At the
the
time, yes.
township has kept him on as the person that's handling that for the duration, correct?
It's done though, I think.
Right, but it was an action of the planning board or an action of the
I
township?
think it was just the planning board. I don't, that's my recollection.
Yeah, and I think even the Boswell at that time said that it would be beneficial for him to finish that part of it,
Yeah.
and then they would take over once they.
Right. Boswell didn't want to sign the subdivision, there was anything wrong with them, but he didn't prepare them, so he didn't work on it. So he'd have to spend X number of dollars reviewing it, field work and everything, just to put a signature on it. Didn't make sense.
Okay, but it has nothing to do with our actions up here.
No.
So then,
And the planning board, it controls those appointments, so next year, the planning board could appoint anyone they wanted.
For Job's thing, can you just add in that we require updates of the status on this? Since he's not meeting with anybody regularly, we're gonna need some feedback as to where this is at.
Yeah, his direct communication actually is gonna be with Boswell, because they'll be working
On the intersection.
at the intersection.
Right.
You're talking about the intersection, you're talking about 120.
right, so Boswell's handling the intersection, he's handling the taking.
Takings, correct.
So it's all part of it, so he has to report to Boswell,
Yes.
who is going to make sure that we are informed of what's going on the project.
The other, can I just mention one other thing, Mayor? The Oak Street Park, I think it's called, the building that's being built over there. Part of the stormwater drainage from that site is there's 3 6-inch PVC pipes for the drainage. We don't have the necessary equipment to clear them if they become clogged. Township doesn't own the equipment, so Mike Kelly, Jim Schmunk, Bob, and I, we've been talking about how to resolve that, and the property owner is prepared to take responsibility permanently to clear those lines if it becomes necessary.
That's really stormwater.
Stormwater.
And where is
Right.
it?
Stormwater.
Right, we have we're working on an agreement. I
I
went
just want to
over.
make sure who makes the determination has to be cleaned.
Right.
I want to make sure we tell them when.
Are they rentals or they're gonna be sold?
I don't know, I don't know.
Because if the property owner is gonna take responsibility now and it changes
No,
to
it'll,
a condo association or townhome association,
no, what I told them was it has to be in a recordable form. It's gonna be recorded by the deed, so it runs with the land. Whoever owns it, it's gonna be their responsibility. And, so we have a kind of a working agreement, which isn't finalized yet, but, and Mike is on board. I spoke to Jim Schmunk and he agrees this is the way to do it. The details of it will be in an agreement that I hope to have ready for the next meeting, but I'd like a resolution just authorizing it. I mean, it seems to make sense. I don't know how else it could be resolved, honestly, other than buying the equipment, which wouldn't make sense.
But this is on their property.
Correct.
So if there's a backup of stormwater,
It actually, it's not just on their equipment. I believe it also extends beyond their property.
so where does that go? Because all of a sudden, if there's a backup and now they're cleaning it out, and it winds up in somebody else's backyard or property,
those
That
lines
could
probably
cause-
dump into our
where,
stormwater
so where does
Yes,
it, where does it go?
It's connected to the rest.
To our-
I mean, I don't know that for a
to
fact.
the
but that's-
townships.
I
It has to be
think,
right.
yeah, I
It
think
has to
for
be
those
right.
kind of technical questions, you'd have to ask Mike or Jimmy. Jimmy Schmuck, he would probably be. I don't really know off the top of my head.
But it's not, they're not running a complete separate line
No,
to any place, so the only other place it could be would be to the original, to the township.
Right.
So we're talking about the end run from the end of the street onto,
I think,
through the property or onto the property. That's-
I think the water flows towards the river
Yeah.
from that location. So
Right.
it'd be off the property up Oak Street.
originally, it was a 15-inch line. And I don't know how it all happened, but it's been replaced by 3 6-inch lines. So,
There was some issues because of what had happened was when public service came in and put all those new lines in
yeah, they
3
couldn't,
years back. And that's what happened. They couldn't get another 15-inch line
Yeah.
underneath. So the only way they could do it was with a 6-inch line.
And the carrying capacity is essentially matched. I mean, it's probably more prone to clogging if it's,
it's more narrow,
A
but
small-
the total area of the
Yeah,
lines,
I mean-
it's roughly the same, but I mean, it seemed to be a sensible, Mike had this idea when he spoke to Jim Schmunk about it. It seems to be a sensible way to do it. Just a matter of how to document it to make sure, 10 years from now, they're still responsible. So if we can resolve all the terms of it, I'd like to have a resolution at the next meeting.
we also have to have an expected response time
Well, that's what I was
to,
gonna say.
to how,
Like a
if they're-
schedule.
Right, well, it's not, I mean, they shouldn't have to clean it unless there's an issue, right? Or are they gonna be required to maintain it? And then in, I guess, emergency situations, if it does get blocked, what is the expected, response
Right.
of getting it done? Can we put
Yeah, you could do
I
something,
can do
you can put something in there, it has to be cleaned every 6
Well, I was
months.
just saying, sometimes it was scheduled, so that
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
can't just say, yeah, we
cleaned
checked it.
or inspected?
Yeah.
You know, And then if there is a blockage that occurs, what we expect from the township to make sure that that is handled in an
This is what we
expeditious
spoke about. anyway.
Right, exactly.
Is this for the 23rd? Is this for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
It's a
I mean, I'd like
resolution?
I'd like to have a resolution on.
Want to put it in if they have any regular filing that they have to do with the town every year, just include that they're required to provide proof of the maintenance
Mhm.
upon annual filing or semi-annual, whatever filing they have to do with the town.
Yeah, well, it'd be to
I don't know that there'd be any other, but we could require it as part of this, like every
Yeah,
year.
I
they
mean,
have to-
I'm sure there's some sort of annual thing they have to do.
Well, Jim Schmuck is the freshwater, stormwater management,
Oh, that's true.
coordinator anyway, so we'll right through him,
Okay.
Okay.
or whomever's in that position. Right?
Yeah.
Any other,
That's all I have, man.
okay. All right, correspondence. Any questions or any item that you want to discuss?
Can we look at item O, the Presbyterian Church donated again to us?
Are they coming down to? Yeah. I mean, we should thank them. We
Yeah,
should-
Very shy, but I will.
I know we should. Pastor Kim is very shy, but he, you know, sometimes you gotta pull out.
I'll invite him for sure. Also, can we get the arbors then next meeting or? I think it's available November 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Can't, instead of seminar in 2 weeks, it's November 6th.
That's why it's on the old business and not tonight. November 6th.
You wanna read it? Yeah, it's not just, I just think it's nice.
Sure, we can we'll do it now and we'll let him speak. So, dear Mary Casimir, encloses donations to the Township of Rochelle Park in the amount of $1,241.35 to help the needy residents of Rochelle Park. The donation is the entire proceeds of our annual yard sale held on August 24th, 2019. May God bless you and all who work under your leadership for our town. Sincerely yours, Young D. Kim, the senior pastor at Presbyterian Church. Every year they send us, or almost every year, and it is certainly a community effort. If you see the items that they bring out for sale, they do have all their members, and I'm sure parishioners and other people that are donating to their annual drive, and it certainly goes to good use. I think a number of years ago, we used it for, or offered it for people who were going to summer camp that needed some funding. And I believe other years we did, we might have donated to some of that to Center for Hope and Safety, I believe, one year. So they're all worthwhile causes, and we certainly appreciate their donation to the township.
Thank you, man.
Okay, nobody else for correspondence? All right, old business,
Well, he's coming November 6th, so that's the old business.
all right. New business,
Okay, payment of bills for October, it's resolution for the RFQs. And we're gonna do a resolution hearing and adoption of 104819.
we're
Disciplinary,
doing,
the defense, team, we're gonna do that tonight. Resolution hearing and adoption 1049 to provide salary compensation for fire prevention. We're gonna do hearing and adoption amending chapter 185 zoning, historic home overlay zone. We have a release of closed session minutes for September 25th. We've got introduction amendment salary ordinance. We've got a resolution, I have a lien redemption, a resolution for Oak Street stormwater maintenance agreement. I think that's it so far.
okay, so which ones do we have to move tonight? We have two, correct? So, we'll do these, I guess, individually and by roll call. So, I'll make a motion for, to approve, resolution 2019-196 which is authorizing the 1033 program, which is obtaining police vehicles in accordance of the state requirements.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Committeewoman Bonneface?
Yes.
Committeeman Botchner?
Yes.
Committeeman Morris?
Yes.
Mayor Patton?
Yes. Okay, and I make a motion to
Winged it over here.
authorize 2019-197, which is authorizing Job and Job to continue with engineering work at the intersection improvement, specifically related to takings, not to exceed $4,700.
I'll make that motion.
I got the second, okay.
I'm sorry, the first one.
So I made the motion and Ms. Bonneface was the second. Okay, roll call.
Committeewoman Bonneface?
Yes.
Committeeman Botchner?
Yes.
Committeeman Morris?
Yes.
Mayor Patton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other business that we discussed? Okay. All right, administrators report?
I'm going to be very short and say I'll give my report next week.
Okay. Committee reports. Mr. Warren.
Okay, well, for building department, I did request to have Mr. DiMaria come in, and he gave us a quick overview of the building department and the need for the subcode person, I guess that's what you would call him. So that will help get some of the plans and permits that are on the table moving, so we can get started with some construction that people are waiting for. And I met with the administrator and Invictus Pharmacy. We just wanted to touch base with them to go over any health-related initiatives for the winter months that are approaching. They also are going to try and aid us in getting AED machines.
Yes.
They may have a way where they can donate to the township, one or two, or however many they can get a hold of. They also have Narcan, which is the overdose medicine, I guess. They want to offer that to the police. They can donate that, and the township as well, if the administrator wants to, introduce that to the township, the offices. And then this Saturday, Josh Gottheimer's outreach team will be doing a voter registration drive from 12 to 3 at the American Legion, right in the parking lot area. So if you aren't registered to vote, you can go stop by and register. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Ms. Bonneface.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. I'm pretty much a public service announcements tonight. We've now, everybody's been asking where to get rid of packaging styrofoam. And the county is doing a styrofoam collection drive, December 28th at the Hackensack Yacht Club, Schaefer Place in Hackensack, from 10 to 3 p.m. That's the stuff that comes in TVs. It's not peanuts, it's not food containers, TVs, computers, anything. It's the big styrofoam. So I have some waiting to get rid of, so I can't wait for December 28th to come around. I have flyers here if anybody wants one. With recreation, we have the big Ragamuffin Parade coming Saturday, October 26th, from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. It starts at William Street parking lot at 5:30, and then it heads down to Carlock Field, where there'll be a DJ, light refreshments, wear your costumes, bring your decorated jack-o'-lanterns. There's going to be a contest for that. Drop them off between 4 and 5 at Carlock Field. Also, they're going to help Helping Hands Ministry, families in need of food, bring a can or 2 or 3. Also is the first annual House of Frights. It's the house decorating party. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the party with the DJ. Woohoo. That will take place Friday, October 25th, between 6:30 and 9:30. Winners are determined in 3 categories: creative, scariest, and authentic. Winners will be announced 7:30 at Carlock Field, and let you, email, Jamie Olette at, jolette42@gmail.com to be put on the list. If you can't remember Jamie's email, just send it to Recreation also at our website.
Could you,
Also,
touch base with Billy Trulinsky in Maywood? He asked me.
he did call me, we've
Yeah.
been playing phone tag.
Yeah,
Billy is Mr. Maywood, he's the one who decorates Maywood all up, and he reached out to help us out with stuff, so I really appreciate that. Also, on the 26th is the last night for Rochelle Park Recreation Basketball sign-up, and that's pre-K to second grade is $55, junior, senior division is $90. So I've been to many of these games, and it's a fun night. You know, I found myself down there more than once. It's good to watch the kids. It's real enjoyable, and your support can be used. And that's all I have, folks. So have a good couple of weeks till I see you again.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bosnick.
I requested the proclamation for October recognized as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in honor of the memory of Georgette Kapler. I just want to remind everybody that there are crisis hotlines. Bergen County has one at 201-336-7575. New Jersey also has a domestic violence hotline at 800-572-SAFE. Both numbers are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So please use those if you need them. And I also thought it would be nice if we use the electronic billboards we have, possibly to run like the PSA for these hotlines for the remainder of the month. We can work that in.
I have, you certainly have my support in doing that. Any member of the committee have any?
I just want to do the standard state and county PSA ones, nothing different.
Mr. Davidson, could you take care of that?
Yeah, I'll have to, do we have something that's out there that you can?
We could pull a graphic from,
Yeah.
we'll just pull a graphic from that.
Okay.
Because I know we're doing the, actually for Hope and Safety, their walk, we're also advertising on the Billboard. We've been doing that for the last 3 years, so that's also happening.
Can you ask our company to see if we can get 2 terms that would correlate at the same
Yeah,
time?
because what we've been doing actually, because what you remember, we're gonna have the house.
Mhm.
And we'll have the walk, and we'll have this, but we'll try, I'll make sure we do something with it.
Okay. Yes, something. Okay. Thank you very much. I just have one thing tonight. This is election season, and as you know, there are lawn signs that are supporting candidates that may or may not be the candidates that you support on people's lawns. Please be respectful of other people's rights. And I've heard of at least one incident where that right was violated and somebody approached a neighbor and yelled at them for supporting a certain candidate. So please, let's keep it open and honest. This is one of the things that makes America great, the ability to choose and support candidates that you believe in. So let's, hopefully we don't hear anything else about that for the rest of the campaign season.
Doesn't the town have a limit on one sign per candidate per lot?
Yes, I believe so.
That's true. Okay. I see a lot of 2s.
If they are, if there's 2s, then they should be, I guess, referred to the administrator, and if that certainly is a violation, then the administrator.
Property maintenance?
I guess we can check the property maintenance and have them take care of it that way.
But the property maintenance, if it's on somebody's property, should not be going onto somebody's property. They should notify the person that they are in violation of the rules, and then that person should be taking it off of their
Oh,
property.
yeah, we can't take it off.
Correct.
Absolutely not. It's not, we can't touch. What we can do is notify them that they're in violation of the ordinance, that's all.
That's fine. All right. That's all for me. Thank you. Do we want to Oh, you have a report? I'm so used to not having a report, but
Just to let everyone know, the clerk's office will be open Tuesday, October 15th, 9 to 9, for anyone to come in and register. That's it.
sure now. You don't speak
Sure.
very often.
I know I don't.
All right, can I have a motion to open the public?
Motion.
All right, no seconded. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, seeing none, we have unanimous vote. We're open to the public. So please come forward, state your name and address and your concern, right over here.
Carol Schmidt, House 15 Peach. I have a couple of questions, really quick ones. The library renovations. Where was the funding for that? Was that out of the general budget?
No,
Library.
that's coming out of the
The
library,
library?
correct.
So it didn't cost taxpayers anything?
Well, no, it did.
It comes.
It didn't come out of
They paid the
the,
library tax, it came out of their budget.
Excuse me?
They paid the library tax. So they got,
Okay,
so they, and they got that, all that money went directly to them.
okay, all right, thank you. And, Plaza Way. The Rochelle Park side is full of weeds. The weeds are growing into the road. Something needs to be done on the Rochelle Park side.
can,
Yeah, we've actually been dealing with that throughout the whole summer here with the plaza. Some of it is actually Plaza's responsibility, some of them are actually property owners. It's a matter of establishing which ones are, and so I know that Jim has been working on it. I'll discuss it with him again tomorrow.
okay.
Well, once you get to like the back of 120, the 6th Street,
Yes.
that's when it really starts. And all the way down to, TV Deck, or, you know,
Can we notify the property owners and, if there are, any avenues that we need to pursue?
Yeah, I know, and Anne Marie's been working on that as well.
Okay. So can we get a letter out to them, the property owners, each, before our next meeting?
Either that or we'll have our neighbors first.
Okay. Well, that would be fine as well.
thank you.
Mhm.
Now, 120 Passaic. The dirt mounds have been leveled, but the land has risen because it's up to trees. Is that gonna stay that way?
I know that they are reviewing or have submitted a plan to the DEP for review. That was part of the initial process, grading of property, division of the, probably the lot lines that are, or the parcels. Those are all elements of probably what was submitted to DEP.
They needed extensive DEP review and approval, so that type of change in grade would all be reviewed by the state.
Because it's quite a bit. I mean, you're talking maybe a foot.
It's
I mean, you
probably
can't-
higher,
you
it's probably
can't
higher
see.
than that, but yeah.
You can't see the bottom of the trees where they fan out.
So,
And being it's a flood zone,
right. And if that's the grade, those trees are probably not gonna do so well. So, can we just make sure, I mean, is it by DEP at this point, or do we have any information that,
I don't know where the environmental approvals stand right now, but I could find out.
okay, thank you.
while we're talking about, concerns, a number of meetings ago, we had questions about the paving of Howard or Harvey?
Howard.
Do we have the information?
So I don't have the one from Harvey on, but I know within the last 5 years, I know that the rest of it was definitely done.
From Han
From
all the way
all
to
around.
Whitman?
To the best of my knowledge, that whole thing was done.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
Howard to Whitman.
So, but anyways, it was definitely, we had issues with the, required to be coming in here, so actually it was not 5 years ago, at least 8 years ago.
Okay, so can we make sure we have that information by next meeting?
Yes, I can definitely.
Okay, anyone else from the public that has questions?
Good evening, Jerry Cronin, Windsor Court. Just want to ask see what's holding up our payment for municipal aid. There's a,
I'm working on a calculator. I have a package that I got from Jeannie or from
show that.
Jeannie too.
Okay.
It got to me, but I'm working on it.
Could I make a suggestion, please, that be made part of the annual budget instead of coming back and forth and hassling us and hassling you? That this be made a line item in the
I
budget?
think it probably is, but we just do a separate we do a calculation every year, because what happens,
From March, this is now October. Would you want your bills paid like that? No, we don't.
the problem is that every year your building and another building submits your bills, what you pay for these things, but that's not that's not what you're entitled to reimbursement of. So every year it takes an analysis to take your bill, not that it should take 6 months, I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but the calculation is not what a lot of people believe it is. It's based on other elements, so we have to just redo it each year, so. But yeah, I am working on it.
Okay. The check's in the mail?
It's sort of,
Okay.
almost.
Do we have to take further action to authorize that?
We always did a
You're not allowed to
resolution.
post anything. Thank you.
It's styrofoam, not political.
We're so conscious there. Okay, may I?
Yeah, I was just,
We always did I always did a calculation and resolution every year. About 4 years ago, for some reason, we decided, well, there's no need for me to get involved and do a resolution. It was just done internally. That didn't work out so well, because one was paid too much, and there's a duplicate, so it's back to doing an actual resolution each year, so.
Okay.
So that's why it's going this way.
all right.
Okay, Mayor, actually, thank you, to the clerk. 2008, Howard was done from Harvey to Meakin,
2008.
2008,
From Harvard to Meakin.
Harvey to Meakin.
Can I-
And it looks like then 2007,
Like my time.
Reclaim your time.
We're stopping the clock. We're stopping the
You're on
clock.
floor here.
We don't have the clock, but, all right, just,
sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, I'm never
he's still- he's
finished.
still standing. He's still standing there. He hasn't given up the floor yet.
Sorry, I
So,
apologize.
so, well, all right, just hold.
We go back to the-
No,
Yeah.
I'm finished. I mean, you're on a roll.
No, we're
Okay,
not.
I can stop and start.
You know, I don't have.
Okay.
Mr. Cronin, you have the,
Okay,
you have our undivided attention.
okay, Mr. Kashmir.
Yes.
At the last public meeting, someone questioned about the building and the amount of students that may increase the
Yes.
population in Midland.
Yes.
You gave a number of that. There was like 6 or 7 kids coming out of Windsor Court.
That's what I recalled from one of the initial conversations that I had.
There is currently no children.
Okay.
There has not been. I think in our entire 14 years, we might have had 3 students there. And the children just stay there until they're in the 3rd or 4th grade. And the parents just say, we want a backyard, we want this, we want that. So there's really no one.
Okay.
There's no one currently. There has been no one from Windsor Court in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Okay? You found one.
A couple years ago, I had one from Windsor Court.
Okay, as I said, 4 or 5 years ago. The last, so I won't give the name, but there's currently no one
the
there.
concept,
The impact.
the concept is that the impact of multi-family units, while there are probably some calculations that you can do, in reality, there's probably, sometimes the reality is that it's
Okay.
less.
I just wanted to
Thank you.
correct that issue.
Thank
And also, you brought up an issue on Oak Street. It's very, very interesting. When Windsor Court was built, all stormwater had to remain on the property. This continues, it's our responsibility. We clean our own drains. Every 2 years, we have in front driveways, we have grates that get lifted and sand gets replaced. Costs us a couple of $1,000.
Right.
I don't think that should be the town's responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know why.
That should be the builder's responsibility.
Yeah, there is a requirement for zero net runoff from,
Right.
on-site stormwater retention statewide. So I'm not exactly sure why this became an issue. But that's a good point, I mean, because that's supposed to be a requirement, so. And I'm sure it was a requirement of this approval as well.
So, I don't know if the DEP restrictions have not relaxed
No.
since 14 years ago.
The net runoff restriction is still there, so I could ask Mike Kelly, why this is an issue at all, but there's probably some drainage off, anyway, just as kind of a safety valve or.
Well, you have to build your system to hold a certain amount of water.
Right.
And then after that, the water
It's gotta go someplace.
has a mechanism to
Yeah.
go someplace.
We have retention, we have a huge
Right.
retention basin in the
And I-
back of our property.
I believe they do have that, but I even think that your system might be connected to a drain somewhere, or runoff somewhere.
That's
Then
my
again,
knowledge.
you could probably, it might even be off the back of your property, because,
All waters go into the wetlands, which we pay taxes on.
right. So there is a drain mechanism that,
But it doesn't go into any common area. Doesn't go into the common sewer.
I know that,
I'll ask Mike and what he.
right, I also know that with the Bergen Landscaping had a water retention system that has an overflow that is connected into a public
Yeah.
runoff.
There are calculations that it's got to hold X amount of water over a certain period of time, calculated based on a certain storm surge, and that, I'm not familiar exactly with the calculations, but Kelly could probably tell us. But I would say there's probably some overflow runoff off-site from every place, even if there's a requirement that this much water be retained on-site with retention basins and things. There's got to be some way, in case it exceeds that, someplace for it to go, or else where does it go?
So I'm visiting that taxpayers should not pay for cleanouts,
Well, that,
unless
but that's
the
what
town wants to
Yeah, that's.
identify the drains
Yeah,
and
that-
make it
that's
their
what we're doing here,
responsibility.
that the property owner's gonna be responsible for it, but.
right, so there's no additional costs, and there's no
No.
equipment purchase that the
No.
township would be taking on
That's correct.
with that location.
That's correct.
All right, so there's no additional taxpayer expense. We should find out exactly the engineering background
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
why there's a drain that goes into the public sewage or stormwater runoff. But I also believe that most of those systems are connected into some other system as well. So, well, I don't.
You're welcome to walk our property,
Right,
and I'll gladly give you a tour.
It's possible that the back portion of your property is enough to do all the holding of the water plus some. Maybe you didn't have to, set that up. So,
They put those special papers on it.
right.
Also, I know this is an issue for closed session, but you have a thing here by Rochelle Park Swim Club. Was any of the people from the swim club invited for,
I spoke to someone from the club, yes,
okay,
yes,
and they're aware of,
yes.
okay. I thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Any other member of the public?
Lynn Houghton, West Boulder Street. We're back to 120 again. Originally, I was informed by council that Job had the initial parcel and only that one parcel to work with. Yet the whole parking lot was ripped up. How did it happen? No one seemed to know. Now, I believe the last work session, Mayor, you said now that the developer's agreement is signed, the debris will be taken out.
I did not say that.
Well, then I misunderstood you. But the piles, the wall of asphalt was pulverized. That is spread over the entire all parcels. How is that allowed if he's only supposed to be doing the first parcel?
So the way that we got to the current site conditions right now compared to a number of weeks ago, we did sign the developer's agreement on the back portion of that property, which is the self-storage facility. As part of one of the discussions with the developer at the time, for the redevelopment agreement, which is an additional document that is currently under works, the administrator asked the property owner to clean up the property as a town request. And that is why they were able to, because I think the stop work order was rescinded at that point or removed, and they were allowed to do work on their property again, which they've done. And that was at the request of the administrator, actually at the pressing of the administrator to get that work done. So that is where it is, but it has not, they're two individual items.
So this gravel that has been spread about now is going to stay like it is? Because apparently when the DEP gave them approval to raise the property to a 100-year flood stage, right, they had to allow space for clean fill, not asphalt fill, clean fill. Where's that fill going to go? If it's all,
Go through the full process of when they get there, going for their applications and everything else. That all still has to be done. This was just an effort to try to clean up the property that everybody was having this year.
I don't know, and I don't know what constitutes clean fill either. If the state allows for certain types of materials to be used as fill, I don't know if it's clean fill or fill. I don't know where the line is, and if they are keeping that there, what they're planning on doing with that stuff there. I would hope that it would be removed, but it does look like it is laid out in a pretty uniform grade. So at this point, until the DEP, and that's really not our jurisdiction, right? We can't require something that's above and beyond
That's all
what the
part of the
DEP.
environmental approvals, DEP, which have not been, I'm sure haven't been obtained yet because it's too early.
Can we have a clarification by next meeting?
Yeah, I'll find out where they stand.
We
And
were told this was gonna be a zero net fill project. So, and then the DEP allows them to bring the elevations up?
I don't have an answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have
but
an
the
answer to that,
but the DEP would publish their findings,
Oh,
correct?
yeah.
So we would get a copy of their findings. So if they haven't made any
I don't believe
determination,
I can't imagine that they've gotten any final DEP approvals yet, because it's just, they don't even have a redevelopers agreement signed, they don't, nothing's been
There's a lot
approved,
missing.
really. I can't imagine they've gotten to that stage, because that's really a very costly process, and it's usually not done until everything else is in place. I can't say with any certainty that that's the case, but just logically, you would think they haven't gotten that yet. So, but I made a note earlier to find out where the DEP approvals or applications stand, so I'll find out from them.
And do they know that asphalt that's been ground up, is it supposed to be there, or can they truck it out of here and go back to what was there before? I mean, I think that's the concern, is
Right.
that you have more than a foot of fill of asphalt ground up. It could sit there throughout the whole winter. And then does that become the ground floor for any building? Or should that be scooped away? I think
Right.
we need that answer.
well, I also think that the the portion that's underneath the building is supposed to be actually dug out.
Mhm.
So, that's supposed to be at grade or even slightly below grade, so they, can accept water into a parking lot instead of into buildings and into our basements that are down the street.
And they were also adding more grass area and everything else. That was a part of that.
I believe they just did that to make it look pretty.
Just to clean it up.
Right.
Get it out of piles and
Just
spread it out.
That's
Yeah,
all
just
that
for now.
that's-
But I'm not sure. I'm just
Yeah,
saying
that's,
what I've known.
Right.
Because before they get moving,
Right.
they're gonna just,
I think that's
Dressed it up.
probably true.
They should try taking the trees out of the parking lot that they took down and they're sitting there if they're trying to clean the place up, because it's not getting cleaned up. All the stuff they pulverized was just spread out. God help you if we get 5 inches of rain.
The administrator is here. I know he, if there's any meetings, he will continually, can you express the concern of the residents the next time you speak to them, or can you reach out to
try
them
to reach
tomorrow?
out to them and say, and most importantly, I think we have to make sure we get this redevelopment permit. I think that's really the key to getting a lot of this done.
My last question. The property maintenance person that was hired, was he the one that was temporarily doing the job?
yes.
Temporarily.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's still temporary, right? Or at least to the end of this year?
He's on.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Okay. Any other member of the public?
Steve Sewer on Older Street. With all this building between 120 where they're gonna put apartments, they want to put apartments by Central, you got apartments by Oak. Some of these are 2 and 3 bedroom apartments on Oak. Is anyone thinking of what it's gonna impact the school system?
Yes. I think, we've done a couple of, well, that's probably why we had that's why we had the discussion about Windsor Court. They have 2 and 3 bedroom, units there, as well as 1 bedroom units.
No, it's just 1 and 2 bedrooms. By law, we were not allowed to have a 3-bedroom unit.
No bedrooms, not
There's no
even.
3 bedrooms.
There's no 3 bedrooms at
No.
all.
It's 2 bedrooms and a loft.
Have they been, have any of those been
None of them can be
converted?
converted.
Okay. Okay. So there are 2 bedrooms there. The only 3 bedrooms that I know about that are coming online are the, required units that are affordable housing,
Okay.
which is, do we have any idea of how many we're talking?
I don't remember. It's fewer than the 1 and 2s. But
Right.
I don't remember what the exact unit breakdown was.
Okay, so we can get a unit count of how many 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms are required by affordable housing, but there are some 2-bedroom market units as well. So we can get a development report as to what's coming online in the next, let's just say, 3 years or so, or the projects that are currently in the works, and we can, I guess, give that to the school to let them know that this is the plan, or what potentially might be coming our way.
The only thing, even a 1-bedroom apartment, when there's a will and a way, you can say 1-bedroom apartment, somebody can be sleeping on a pull-out couch, somebody can be sleeping in a bedroom. There's a spot for a kid in a 1-bedroom apartment. Now, being that the last edition of Midland Schools, I think around 73. That was when they put the gym and stuff like that, but actually the building part of it, when he made it actually big, like that was around 73. Sacred Heart closed up, I think it was the mid-80s. I might be wrong, but somewhere around the mid to late 80s at the latest. Midland School absorbed all what kids were left in that. Now, shouldn't these developers actually be paying somewhat towards the school system? In other words, so when you are going to need more room in a school, that's not coming out of everyone's pocket because of, we're not going to bear the brunt of it, but these developers are actually making it in their pocket and walking away afterwards.
We had a conversation, Mayor, you and I, about the school, and trying to gauge how many students potentially could come from the apartments. It's hard to decide whether or not you need to build an expanded wing onto a school, and here's why. If we have a situation like a Windsor Court where the impact is very low, then we have built an entire wing of a building that has to be maintained by the taxpayer, staffed by the taxpayer, and even though it's been built by the developer. So in this passing conversation, we talked about finding ways to upgrade Midland School, to make use of the space that's there now, maybe when these developments come online, to reconfigure some of the building to make additional room. Adding a wing or adding additional space into a building, yes, to pay for the initial wing would come from a developer, I hope, but maintaining it would be on us to maintain those
No, I can
rooms.
understand that, but I mean, just what it's good would cost us even if you have to put a wing on or some
Correct.
more rooms on.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have a lot of room, I don't think, left to put more students in each room. There's
Right.
requirements
I
on
mean,
the size of the rooms to, I mean.
I do work in a high school where there is no, believe it or not, there is no state law about how many kids can be in a classroom. And I don't think it's the best way to learn, obviously. As an educator and an advocate for educators, I don't think a squeezed building is the best type of building to have children in. So we got to find a balance between accepting new students, upgrading the current facilities, expanding buildings, especially, you know, in small districts like ours. It would be on the backs of us to carry on that part of the building, heat it, staff it, clean it, maintain it, all those things,
That's
and bring it up to modern day code. So I think we've discussed it and agreed that this is, when these places start to come online, this is something we definitely have to look at. But I think I would like to take a more cautious approach, just not to overextend. And then we have all this extra space that we have to maintain. So, no, but I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sewell. Sorry, Mayor. I didn't mean to do that.
That's fine. That's
I mean, but the other-
fine. You're my go-to guy in education anyway.
I mean, the other aspect too is a lot of this stuff is not so much your responsibility as it is the board's, correct?
Yes,
Right,
correct.
We're planning his own year, but, so we've had many conversations, and I'm sure that these board members are not sitting here saying, I don't really care how many
No,
kids come
they're
into the
concerned.
class. So they're concerned
But
as
we've
well.
had those
They're homeowners just
conversations.
like we are.
Have we put it into a written document just stating what the potential is? And, I mean, also, when you're going to calculate rental properties should be calculated different than condos, because the turnover rate in condos is a lot less than if you're going to a rental location, which means that people might tolerate the additional person in the living room or bedroom, you know, for a short period of time, which means that there is an additional student in there for a period of time. So there are different calculations based upon the ownership type of those buildings. So based upon that, we can probably get a quick estimate, possibly by our planning
Someone.
Our planner.
consultants, our planners, planning consultants.
I haven't seen Susan in a while.
I don't know if she'll, John is pretty good.
Mayor,
Yes.
if nobody knew, it came out this week that the governor is looking to consolidate school districts. And Rochelle Park was on the list along with Maywood. So that's another, I'm not saying it's coming tomorrow, but that may happen too. So there's a lot of things come into play. When Hackensack wanted that big school budget, and one of the developers, they took a apartment complex that was 400 apartments, and they estimated 35 kids to come out of that unit. They were rentals, 8 came out of it. So they showed that a reason why not rush to judgment that, you know, oh, we got to make the school bigger because we're getting 60 apartments, you know. So I'm just, it's a, you don't know, it's a roll of the dice.
And that article identified a future that potentially may be down to 230 school districts across the state instead of the 570, 69 or something like that. So it's certainly a concern, but also to a large, respect, that doesn't fall inside our purview of our responsibility. So that is a decision that the school board will need to make, planning for the future of the school, but with informed, information from the township as to what's going on in town and what potentially may come. So that's certainly something that we should be able to provide them with to plan for the future. All right, anyone else for?
Chris Muller, 123 Forest. I'm on the planning board and I have the developers agreement here for 120. And they're talking about the stockpile material on the site. And it says it is acknowledged by the parties that soil, asphalt, and recycled concrete aggregate are currently stockpiled on the property. Upon execution of the agreement, now was that executed yet, or we didn't sign it?
Yeah, it was. It says 60 days or something
Right,
like that.
applicant shall provide the township for its review a list of the volumes of material currently stockpiled on site and a list of the volumes of the current material to be reused for the development of the self-storage facility. If the township determines that the volume of material to be reused on the site is of acceptable volume to be stockpiled, then the applicant must have all other material removed from the site within 60 days of the execution of the agreement. Seems to me in your hands. They're asking you, is this acceptable amount of stuff?
That's on the self-storage site.
I don't know, it's a developer's agreement.
But
Yeah, that's
they
the developer's agreement for the self-storage.
Right,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that they can stockpile whatever they want on the rest of the sites, is that?
No, it's just not addressed in that agreement.
But you just because I could call the DEP on them tomorrow and somebody will come out and look.
Right.
Yeah, and they will tell you that they shouldn't be doing all that. I mean, I would bet you anything. I mean, you can call them anytime. You just can't do what you want, wait for the end result. Because it can take 3 years to do this. So technically they could just leave us, as they're doing things. It just doesn't.
No, that's what we addressed earlier, is that this has to, they can't just leave the ground up, fill or whatever you want to call it here. There's got to be a purpose for it, or it's got to be removed. I mean, and I know they cleaned it up for us because it was an eyesore.
But they didn't do it right. It's not cleaning up. They spread it around.
They ground it up, yes.
But does that mean that they need to remove all that additional material that's sitting there? Because we're only specifically talking about one site. And unless they're storing all the materials on that site for only 60 days, because that's the limit on what they can do as storage, they have to remove all the other stuff.
I think the engineer is going to really have to go out and inspect it. He may have done it already, but.
The DEP I've dealt with them. They come out and they'll say, well, that's wrong, and that he shouldn't. You just can't do that.
That's why I'm just asking, can we ask him to make them
Call the
move those out?
DEP.
Yeah.
We could
All
contact the
violations
DEP,
and
or anybody can
compliance.
contact the DEP, and they'll send a compliance inspector out. And, if it's violating regulations, they'll tell them they have to remove it.
Not since the execution of the agreement.
I think that was last month.
That was September.
Was it September?
Right.
Yeah,
That was the
September,
one
you're
that
right,
I-
September, so,
That I signed right after the meeting.
correct.
They also refer to the maintenance of the pond. And it says the developer is solely responsible for proper maintenance of the pond. Developer shall, at so cost and expense, maintain the pond, including during all phases of development of the property, to the reasonable satisfaction of the town. So, there's a lot in that development agreement that people didn't read.
We pay over $70,000 a year for the hydrants in town. I said, open the hydrant over there and fill the pond back up.
The fire department used to drill over there.
If he's gonna call
Thinking how
DEP.
the Sprouts Brook
I mean,
The
so-
electric is shut off to the site, so the pumps can't work, the aerator can't work.
Well, they should figure out something, because that's what they agreed
Yeah,
to.
no, I know.
So we have some, items that need to be addressed. Let's sort of go.
Get that thing signed.
What?
So that's, I mean, there's gonna be developers agreements for each phase of that. So,
The main agreement is the redevelopment. That's the big one. And I was actually hoping we would have it tonight, but it's not done. By the end of the week, maybe I'll, circulate it to everybody. You could take a couple of weeks to look at it, and hopefully we can adopt it at the next meeting.
okay. Any other member of the public? Yes.
Heather Lund, Terrace Avenue. Did you have your meeting with S&P Bank?
Yes, I reported on the meeting last week.
I
last meeting.
wasn't here, and I think your tape went out again. Is there a problem tonight? I saw Jennifer over there trying to get it going.
I don't, do you know what's going on with the tape?
I heard there's
She
no
said it was
volume.
working. It was
Yeah, I think
working.
it's fine. Something happened and Jennifer fixed it.
Yeah.
So there's an audio, recording of the.
I
of the
know, you
meeting.
tell me that all the time. I'm not interested. But anyway, you had a meeting with S&P Bank?
Yes.
Can I ask who was at the meeting?
It was the administrator, the attorney, our planner, a number of representatives from S&B. I believe their architect, was there.
Yeah, John was there, the planner, right?
Right.
That might be all from the town side.
So those
I was there.
four from the town.
So are they still looking for a pilot program?
They have asked about a pilot program, yes.
And are you working on your reports for that? You talked about having your experts look into.
I think earlier in
Yeah,
the
we
meeting, we had
We
discussion.
retained an economic planner who's an economist also. He's doing a study on it, and it's just not done yet. Part of the problem is that the plan that they originally proposed was scaled down dramatically. So he was working on just the premise that there would be more units, more square footage. He had to revise it because now the plan is down to 29 units. So, yes, he's working on it. His report should.
Can I ask you, how does that work? They come in and say, we want a pilot program, we want 5 years, we want 30 years. Like, how do they come in and present that to you?
Yes.
Yes, what?
That's exactly what they do.
Right,
They present their plan of using a pilot.
right.
They usually, well, this is the first
So I'm
time, so there's
guessing
no
they want
usual-
30 years.
So we would address it with our expert that has been hired to advise the township on that and do analysis of it. And they would make essentially reports or recommendations based upon what the reality of the situation is. And then based upon that, the township committee would either authorize going forward on that pilot program or revising it in some way that would be better for the township. There is no boilerplate pilot program, so depends on what the size of the project is. The size of the project generally tends to lead to the ability to go to longer time periods for pilots in general.
Right.
But it doesn't, it might not apply in this situation, but yes, I've heard of pilots, 5 years, and I've heard of pilots that
There's
are
different
approaching 30 years.
incentives. I mean, you could get a portion of their profits. There's a million pilot programs, but I'm just wondering, Mr. Sedol was talking about the school. The school benefits none from a pilot program. They're basically cut out of it. So I know you have to pay a portion to the county. So I'm just wondering, when are your reports going to be done?
Well,
And how do you make a report if you don't know exactly if they're not asking for 30 years, if, I
Well,
know,
they are
I would
presenting,
imagine.
they are presenting what their pilot ask is.
okay,
And our expert is taking care of the analysis for the township.
okay,
So based upon his experience and what has been done possibly in other locations, that he has the information on, he may, recommend what they are asking for, or he may recommend changes to what they're asking for.
can I ask you, will this project go forward without the pilot program?
I don't know at this point.
That's part of the requirement of granting a pilot, that a determination has to be made that, if a pilot is not given, then the developer will not build the project. So they call it like the but-for test, but for a pilot, they won't do the project. So we have to make that determination.
So
Can't
they just, I mean, if they're creating the report for their own development, wouldn't it just be like, we can't do without the pilot?
Right, well, that's why we that's why we don't rely on their analysis. We have our own, and it's.
Well,
yeah,
isn't it
that's-
almost like an extortion? If you don't give us what we want, we're not doing the project? That's basically what it comes
No,
down
Mr.
to.
Rotolo, what if our report comes back and says, no, you can do it without a pilot? Then what happens?
Yeah, then it's up to the developer.
And
The
isn't that kind of an
developer, they'll make a
opinion?
decision as to whether, if we say, look, our report by Beneke says you can make a go of it, you should be able to do it without a pilot, and you say no pilot, then the developer say, okay, we'll leave the diner there, or we won't build, or whatever. That'll be up to them.
So it kind of does sound, well,
Yeah, it's
if
almost
you're a
like
regular person, it sounds like,
Yeah, I mean, this is the same discussion, the record had a long article
Right.
about pilots, and that's what
Mhm.
everybody,
Well,
there's a
there's been a lot,
there's a perception that it's like a giveaway. But,
it
that's
is a
why you have to
giveaway.
have it analyzed,
Well,
so.
yeah, there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah.
I just have another question, and I brought it up a million times with all these big developments. Is there any way that we can get the agendas online from the planning board and the zoning board? I think the zoning board's, June was the last agenda. The minutes are like May, so it's kind of hard to keep up with what's going on, if something's coming forward. For the planning board, there's no 219 whatsoever.
They usually are published. At least that was my understanding, that they are placed on there.
We can't find them.
You could find them, but they're backdated, they're not current.
Yeah.
For planning board, there's none for 219, 218 is the only listings.
Same with the town council.
All right, we're going to find out if maybe they're listed in the wrong place,
I
or,
know we changed
Oh,
our
it's pulled up.
websites
Yeah.
this year. It might have gone to a different area, but we should definitely check that.
It's not on.
I can talk to Anne Marie too about it.
It's only on Facebook.
Any-
Who knows
But if
that?
people don't
Any
have
other-
Facebook.
any other questions? Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm not giving up on the public yet, just making sure everyone has their, yes. All right, any other member of the public?
Yes. When you're using the term pilot, does that mean payment in lieu of tax?
Okay, all right, so I was gonna get to that because there was a question. Yes, it means payment in lieu of taxes. And there are certain rules and regulations, and requirements that are mandatory in setting up a program for that. Some of them, they're usually related to larger redevelopment or development projects that are within municipalities. So based upon certain criteria, you can negotiate the payment. At the end of the day, when you're looking at the collections from that agreement, there are entities that receive different portions of that payment. And
95% local usually and 5% county.
right,
0%.
so
0% library.
correct. So those are, and those can be negotiated too, if they're in there, but yes, in general, that's what happens. All right, any other member of the public? All right, seeing none.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to close the public and second. All right, all those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? So the motion carries. And we, motion to go into closed? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So none. That's my motion carries. So we may or may not, we may or may not have action after this closed session. If I were to,
No, that's the other, that's the plastic. Anybody want my recycling?
As long as it's public,
I'll be going.
What it is what I do is I put my phone in and it's zero out. Out of the building, it sets down, so it counts every step when you leave the park. As soon as you put the thing on.
other towns can find out.
Exactly, right.
So let's
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like it runs out. The parking lot in the church, we go all the way around that.
Everybody will do
It's nice. It is nice. It'll make the
I had no idea.
They say that if we didn't get any rain, the leaves are just gonna turn brown and dry.
Some of the,
But
you have
now
the new
that-
page,
yeah,
new
I know.
page up, so some of the links might be sending you.
You work? What does he do? Really? Good?
Thank you.
Really? Does he like develop it or?
You're in a rush to get out then.
I want to do the close, so I can go home.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I mean, it's already 10 o'clock. It's already 10 o'clock. We're gonna get finished at 11:30.
Oh, hey, same thing happens at the planning and zoning board sometimes.
Yeah, these meetings don't have set end times ever.
Right.
We don't call our meeting and say 10 o'clock, finish up, that's it. Ours go forever.
Once was a time they went till 2 in the morning.
Video up?
Okay.